I don't remember who said it, but somebody told me that stories happen to people who can tell them. And I've always loved that because when I think about chaos and things that have happened in my life, I'm like, these are things that one day I'll be able to talk about, and I'll be in a situation where I'll be able to share that with somebody who is also going through that and wants to see representation or wants to feel less alone.
Hello, and thank you for calling the Higher Self Hotline, your direct line to the divine. You've been led here by your inner knowing, and you've arrived right on cue. I'm your host, Zoey Greco, and together we'll make the ethereal earthly, helping you consciously embody your spiritual knowing and most authentic self. Please listen carefully to the following options. To discover how to fulfill your soul's purpose, press 1. To unlock infinite abundance in life, love, and career, press 2. To heal your mind, body, and spirit, press 3. To speak with your personal spirit guides, press 0. Please hold while we connect you to your highest timeline. Hi friends! Just dropping in to let you know that my October and November schedule for client sessions is now open. If you've been feeling the call to shift into deeper alignment, authenticity, abundance, and activation, this isn't just your sign, but this is an invitation from my higher self to yours. As my personal token of gratitude for your loyal listenership, I'm sharing a secret code created only for my podcast community because you are my true soul family and the people that I am genuinely born to serve. There is something special between us, a resonance that you already feel if you find yourself coming back week after week. And I want to acknowledge and honor that connection. And I'm hoping that you'll use this code as your permission slip to invest in yourself and in this experience. Head to zoegreco.com to book your session and enter Higher Self at checkout to save 10%. I would be deeply honored to walk with you, and I can't wait to see you in session. Hello, divine darlings, and welcome back to the Higher Self Hotline. I'm your host, Zoey Greco. Thank you so much for joining me today. And today's episode, I know I'm always like, I'm so excited. No, guys, I'm so excited. I have been a true hardcore fangirl of this beautiful being for over a decade. If she's not slinging mystical products, she's out exploring the world and traversing the most haunted spots. Today we have Alex LeMay with us. And before I tell you her extremely impressive professional repertoire, I just want to say as a person, the way that Alex shows up in authenticity, the way that she's open with herself, her experience, her perspective, like truly a voice that I think not only do we want, but we need. And so you guys know that I'm always here to provide entertainment, but more than that, I want to bring you people that can help you understand spirituality more deeply, yourself more deeply, your own spiritual gifts. And Alex is really one of those people. So let me tell you a little bit about her. Alex LeMay, if you don't already know her, that would shock me, is a paranormal investigator known for her role as a co-star on Hulu's Living for the Dead and has also appeared in several episodes of Ghost Adventures. She owns a metaphysical shop called Moon Goddess Market with the best stuff, which she has run as a side business, which I think is the wrong way to refer to that. I think it's actually an amazing, bustling business for over 12 years. And in addition to her television work, she films and produces her own YouTube channel where she explores the paranormal with friends at different haunted locations across the U.S. Alex, thank you so much for being here. We're so happy to have you.
Thanks for having me. I'm such a big fan of yours too.
Girl,
Okay, great.
so this is just a funny story just for the pod, actually, for a second. So I want to say 10 years ago, maybe a little bit less, maybe 7, 8, 9 years ago, I thought I was going to open a clothing store, and I DM'd you and was like, I want you to model for this clothing store that I'm going to open. I never did. But when I DM'd you to come on the show, that DM was still there. And I was like, oh yeah, in another life, you were going to be a model for a clothing store that I was going to open. So I love that this is actually where we found ourselves. I think this is more befitting.
Yeah, no, I love that. I totally forgot about that too. Yeah, we've been kind of crossing each other's paths for some time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, just even being a Phoenix resident, like Moon Goddess Market has always been a staple. Like, you always have the cutest stuff. And I've watched you as an artist both thrive and struggle, because what you create is always so wildly popular. Like, I think as, you know, a witch and intuitive, you're hitting the trends before they show up. And so we've watched for years where your work's been ripped off. You've had to, like, I feel like you do attract some wild experiences, like some very interesting things. And I'm sure we'll get into some of those, but I would love if you could help people understand a little bit about your journey. Like, let's start with little baby LeMay and how she became like the ghost hunter that she is today. And how did you become, you know, someone that graces our television screens? Like, take us a little tour of your journey.
Okay. I'll try to keep it, you know, as short and compact as possible.
We have an hour. Just kidding.
Okay, cool. I have lived a pretty wild life. I think I have this patch that I designed that says "Stay Feral" on it. And I feel like that just embodies who I am, because since I was little, I've just kind of been this crazy creature. I felt like I didn't belong to any gender or anything. I was just this, like, kind of felt like an outsider in the way that life had kind of put me in these situations where, like, I didn't really have an upbringing that was stable. So I didn't have my mother or my father really around or anybody like that. And so I was kind of traversing grief at a very young age. I was always grieving my, you know, the fact that stability wasn't there, or my parents both had substance abuse problems. I lost my father through that, and just things were constantly happening. So, like, I feel like I still do kind of attract chaos, and I know that is something within me that I'm still trying to understand. So as a child, I kind of grew up not having that stability, but also tackling grief at such a young age. And as I started to come into my own, I think I was probably like 6 or 7, we moved into this apartment complex, and I had this imaginary friend. And I think a lot of people have had this experience with an imaginary friend that ended up being a spirit or somebody who was attached to wherever it was you were living, like 50 or 100 years prior. And this one spirit came to me and would hang out all the time. And he was very kind to me because I was going through something, and he would always show up and be like, "Hey, it's okay." And he looked as though he didn't look like a, you know, like an imaginary friend. He was, from what I now know, Sikh. He had a head dressing, very long hair and very long beard. He was very tall, and he wore this very long white dress. And he was a part of my life for like 4 years before my aunt was like, "I think this is a spirit and not actually." Yeah, like someone finally came and told me, "Hey, this is actually a spirit and not just an imaginary friend. Like, we think you're talking to somebody who has a connection to wherever we're living now." And we did discover that. And eventually, when I moved away, I had to say goodbye to him. And I remember him waving. I have this vivid memory of him waving goodbye to me, and me saying goodbye to him and being like, wow, he was really there for me. Like, I had this first experience of having, which to other people just sounds wild, you know, having this spirit be there for me, and then saying goodbye and parting ways. And that, I think, set the foundation for the rest of my life, and just being so deeply curious. And another thing I really love about the paranormal that I think has drawn me to it is my own experiences in grief, and how the world reacts to it, and how they want you to be quiet about grief, and they want you to not talk about it. People are experiencing like really profound loss, like when your father dies or somebody in your family, you're expected to go back to work, and you're expected to continue on and just not talk about it. And that, to me, I know that deep in my soul that that's not how, as humans, we're supposed to be living. And the paranormal work kind of goes hand in hand for that, to me, because we're actively interacting with these stories of people who are in active grief, who own the buildings, who are a part of the people that have passed away, or their stories. And it's a way to look it straight in the eye and have these conversations openly, outside of it just being ghosts, or it could be anything. But it opens a conversation for that, so that people feel more comfortable in saying, well, this is something that happened to me and I lost them. And then I think we end up having a lot of conversations about what happens after we die. Where does the soul go? Are our loved ones with us forever? I think all of that has played into where I am today, where I ended up with this TV show called Living for the Dead, which was just so cool. Yeah, loved it. It's produced by Kristen Stewart and Scout. Those are the producers behind Queer Eye. So it's a perfect mix, you know?
Totally.
Yeah, we got the paranormal, we got the queerness, and then we have the heart. So they really leaned into the human aspect of it, where we were all having heavy conversations that people tend to shy away from, that I think is needed in today's day and age. Like, we really do need to be having these conversations, not to get too into it, but I feel like, you know, capitalism and all these things have really...
Please. Yeah.
Yeah. Have really pushed individualism in a way that we're so disconnected to our phones. No one really is looking at each other anymore. I think shows like that were really great representation of what it is to just look grief straight in the eye, look at each other and really see each other for what it is that's happening, and understanding that, you know, you're not alone in these big feelings that you're having. You don't have to keep them quiet. You don't have to bury them. I think a lot of us are struggling with... We're just really struggling with who we are and our place in the world and how we feel and how we show up. And a lot of that is, to me, I think is missing because we're lacking community greatly. And we've kind of turned away from having that community with this false sense of community that we get through our phones. So that I went on that tangent, but yeah, I think the show...
No, I welcome it.
Thanks. Yeah. I think the show really brought that to everyone's attention, and I loved it for that. And now I'm here today doing my YouTube, and Hollywood's in a weird place, you know, like streaming services is strange. Yeah. So that's where I am today. Yeah. Here with you, which I'm so happy about.
You know, so many things that you were sharing. I want to just take a moment to circle in for a second and say, this is exactly why I have wanted you to come on and talk about these topics specifically, because there's so much intersectionality in who you are that I see as being extremely valuable to my audience. So first and foremost, when you're talking about this kind of attraction that chaos has to you, I actually would like to reframe that, if I may, as someone that cares about you, which would be, I personally, and, you know, I resonate with this I feel that this is true as an observer of you as well for years. You are otherworldly and you have this immensely magnetic field. And that is a huge responsibility. And I really resonate with that as well, as someone who's like sparkly and just kind of commands attention by accident. When you are a strong magnetic force, unless you're super conscious of what you're pulling in, you're just going to get everything, the chaos and the glamour and the gore, right? Like, I mean, you've attracted a television show and you've attracted stalkers. Like, you know, there's a lot of variety in your human experience, but it's because you are so passionately, wildly magnetic without even trying to be. Like, that's just who you are. And not only does that magnetism, you know, inform a lot of your human experience, but you're extremely open-hearted and your spirit is very open. And I know that grief and resilience are, you know, really core tenets of the work that you do and the way that you navigate life. And I think that it is so important for someone like yourself to be one of the leading voices in the way that we navigate and talk about and engage with death and the paranormal, because I cannot even tell you, as an intuitive and spiritually sort of inclined child myself, how fearful I was of my own gifts and how fearful I was of the experiences that I was having because of the way that media informs us. And I think, you know, we both grew up primarily in the 90s. And so there's a lot of, I mean, there was Are You Afraid of the Dark, Goosebumps, like everything we watched and everything we consumed was to terrify us and convince us that any connection to the other realm was to be feared, was to be, you know, was considered demonic. Satanic Panic, we're kind of riding the wave of it still in the 90s. Like, there's all of these things that, you know, now as a practitioner, I have parents coming to me being like, how do I take care of my spiritual child? Like, what do I do for my kid who's seeing a Sikh man in her bedroom at 6 years old, you know? Like, how do I support my gifted child? And it's because my clients are gifted people who were never taught how to hold their gift. So for someone like yourself to kind of innately know how to hold that and then be in front of the world and teach other people how to do it as well, not to mention as a woman in a male dominated field where I feel like, all the ghost hunter shows are very like, oh, did you hear that? And there's like a token woman. You know what I mean? Like there's not only that, but also as a queer person. So you're holding all of these intersectionalities as like a magnetic being, someone connected to the other realm, a queer woman in a space that is not generally welcoming to women. Like you are holding so much, and you do it with so much more grace than I think even you are aware of. So all of that to say, I really feel like you are the perfect person to have this conversation because you hold all of those things with intention, with care, with dedication, and in a way that really sets a strong example for other little fucking weirdos who like need someone to look to and go, not only is she beautiful and accomplished, but she's like me. Like she's a little feral and a little, just extremely open to all that life has to offer.
Oh, thank you. I had goosebumps. So thank you so much for all of that and reframing it for me. I really did need that. Yeah, it's true. You're right. I feel as though it's like a superpower to a degree too, having these different experiences. There was this, I don't remember who said it, but somebody told me that stories happen to people who can tell them. And I've always loved that because when I think about chaos and things that have happened in my life, I'm like, these are things that one day I'll be able to talk about, and I'll be in a situation where I'll be able to share that with somebody who is also going through that and wants to see representation or wants to feel less alone. And that, the whole thing about us growing up in the 90s, like that's all very true. We didn't see representation for any of the things that like you and I are seeing now. The fact that we even got a TV show that was very queer forward. We had a trans woman in the middle of the poster. Like it was a very amazing thing to have happen. I think that you're right. The chaos and everything is just, it's all part of my journey and being able to show up in these situations and have those experiences to share with others. And so I'm trying to reframe it too. It's not really chaos in a bad way. It's definitely just, I've never heard anybody call me magnetic before. So like, I really appreciate that. I guess I am calling in everything,
Yeah. But I think like that's the practitioner in you. Like, and I'm very similar. Like I feel that I'm most easily able to serve or create. It's like both the practitioner and the artist, right? Because like I think spiritual practitioners and artists, we soak in as much of life as possible through our gifts of empathy and observation and perception so that we can then reflect it back into the world in the spaces where it's needed. And that's really just what I see you doing is navigating life really courageously. Like everything you do, I'm constantly blown away by your courage and your compassion. Like I don't know what it's called because I've never done it, but like, because I'm like too afraid, I guess, but you do the thing where like people can just ask you anonymous questions and people are fucking wild. Like they're apps, talk about feral. Like people are crazy. And I'm like, who would ask you that? Who would say that? And you just approach all of those questions with both courage and compassion. And I think that that's why watching you as a paranormal investigator is so compelling because you're not there to like sensationalize that experience the way that I'm sure people want you to. Like, I'm sure when you're given a TV show, they're like, all right, make it cool, like entertain us, dance for us, and you're like, well, I'll do my best, but I'm going to do it the right way. I'm going to do it deeply, intentionally. And so, in thinking about like, if I were to have this conversation, which I've wanted to have for years with, I think any other, maybe not any other, but most other paranormal investigators, the way that they would answer these questions is not the way that I want them answered, but like not the way that the way that I'm interested to perceive this information. So for you, for instance, like you've investigated some of the most haunted places in the country. And I'm curious about what has surprised you the most. And I'm not saying like what scared you the most, I'm like, what has been the most surprising to you as you've delved into this work with all of your gifts and all of your tools. Like you yourself are a tool, and then you've got your little arsenal of things to take with you. What have you experienced or encountered as like the most surprising?
I think if I look back at my entire career as being a paranormal investigator, I think one of the most surprising things that I've ever come across was on the show, we did have an episode at Waverly Hills, which is known as one of the most haunted places in America. It was originally a tuberculosis hospital, and it's seen thousands and thousands of death through its doors. Originally, it wasn't opened to be like a sad place. They originally built it up to be something that was positive so that the patients would have time outside. There was a playground on the roof for the kids. And they had a tunnel where they would take the bodies through so people wouldn't see the death as much. They made it into this really wonderful community. But as time has gone past, it's turned into something where there's so much residual energy from all of the death that has been experienced there that there are still, energies, whatever people want to refer to them as, like ghost energies, entities running around the halls, still connecting to people there. If you show up and ask for an experience there, you definitely will experience something, which is pretty amazing about that location in itself. But they built a haunted house there. And I'm not saying that this is the only reason that this entity has happened, but this is what surprised me the most, is because I had a conversation with an entity in the morgue, which is where they used to hold the bodies. And I went there alone at like 1 a.m. and slid into it's like the little thing in the wall where they slide the bodies in and out of. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Like shimmied in there in the dark.
You're naming like all my fears, by the way. Like claustrophobia, like being alone in the dark. But please continue.
Yeah. I don't know. It should bother me, but it doesn't. I think I'm so curious. It overrides everything else.
I love that.
And this entity had been so forward about wanting to connect to somebody. And I felt it within me that I needed to go connect to this, whatever this is, because I had too many questions that were going unanswered. I wanted to know what the origin of this was. Like, how were these entities being created? How were these spirits? Are they stuck in pain? Are they stuck in torment forever? Because that has always sits really poorly with me to imagine, like in a hotel, somebody taking their life and being in such sorrow and sadness and being stuck in that sorrow and sadness forever, which I'll get into later because I do have my own theories on that. But what surprised me about this specific location and this interaction I had with this entity, as I was laying in the little area of the body storage, I guess that's what they call it. It was me, and I had a REM pod. And for your listeners that don't know what a REM pod is, it's this little antenna that comes out of a device, and there's this little field around it. And when you enter the field, if a human enters the field, it'll go off and illuminate and make noise. What's special about that is it's really hard to make it go off unless you are physically getting near the antenna and touching it. So when it goes off in tandem with questions in an intelligent way, it's really hard to discard that as being just random. And so I'm in this little cubby, body cubby with the REM pod above my head. And I called to this entity to speak to it because I wanted to know what the story was, what created it. And I mentioned earlier about the haunted house that they built in this area in the morgue, because I'm sure that was like something that most people do. It's a scary place. They're going to build a haunted house and have it as an attraction. But I think they unknowingly knew that it was kind of feeding something else. And I wanted to ask questions because there were hundreds of attachments coming out of this location. They claimed that, I think it was like at least 100 a year, where people would be writing in and saying like, something followed me home, which is terrifying. And so I'm here sitting, asking questions. I asked it how it was created. I asked if it was created through fear, and it said yes. And then I asked if it was created through human, like if it was us who was creating it through our projections. And it said yes to that as well. And a lot of the questions that I asked kind of reframed the way that I see these negative entities people typically see as being scary or malevolent. It proclaimed itself to be malevolent, which was also very interesting. So it was non-human, malevolent, there were attachments, hundreds of attachments coming from this place. And it claimed to be created through the fear and through people's projections that they brought into this locations themselves. And so I continued asking it these questions, and it was answering in a way where it was almost as if it felt like it was desperate. It needed the fear. It needed these things to feed it so it could continue. And for a minute, I almost felt like empathy towards this thing, where I felt like, oh, I feel bad for it. It's afraid of its own death, even though itself was not created in the typical way. And that entire experience reframed my fear and how I interact with entities at all, because I realized that as humans, what we're capable of doing is so incredible. Like, we're able to do and project and manifest and create in ways that we don't even understand. Like, we barely have a grasp on what we're capable of. And if we're capable of having, enough negative feelings or projections, or like, if you want it to be haunted, you will create the haunting yourself. You can create these malevolent entities by just saying that it is haunted, it will be haunted. And there's so much power in that for yourself that you can go home with and be like, wow, oh my gosh, I have so much power within me. I don't need to be afraid of these things anymore, because it's up to me. It's up to me if I'm afraid of it. It's up to me if I interact with it. And that changed my entire view of paranormal investigating. And I've done lots of different little experiments in communicating with these like malevolent entities and asking and being like, so how were you created? Like, how did this come to be? And they've all answered the same way, where it was something that I know back in the day, they used to do something where they would create things called egregores. And that is done through ritual, where people will, they will do ritual prayers, or they will do different things in tandem with one another, and they will project these feelings, or they will chant certain things to create an egregore, which is in the same sense like a thought form, like what I was interacting with. So I always thought that was very interesting, and it was the first time I had ever had that conversation where that really solidified it for me, where I was like, oh my gosh, okay, we are in control of everything that's going on around us. It's pretty amazing.
That birthed so many questions in me. So first, I just want to say, when you experience something malevolent, what does that mean? Like, is there intention to harm us? Like, how much ability do they have to harm us? Like, walk me through that a little bit. And I mean, oh my God, like I said, I have a billion questions, but let's start there.
So malevolent to me, I believe it to be someone or something that is wanting to cause harm. And that can be through draining your energy. I personally have experienced like weird streaks of bad luck, just strange things happening around me, like too many strange things in tandem, that I feel like it invokes a feeling within me that the entities are feeding off of. It's an energy that they're attracted to. But there's also another side to it where I feel like maybe I'm interacting with this thing because there's something within me that is being seen and mirrored back that I need to face. So there are many, many different levels to the idea of what malevolent is. And I keep using air quotes because to me, I think malevolent is like a very interesting word in the way that people have used it. And I don't shy away from negative feelings, from what people would typically call dark or like shadow work in itself, I think is very important for us. Like, we need to embrace both. So these entities and what malevolent means, I think they're feeding off of fear. They have a lot to teach us though at the same time. And I know that they want you to stay scared and they want you to be not informed, these thought forms or entities, whatever they are, so that they can continue to feed off of whatever that is. But I think...
Well, so does your ego, right?
Yes.
Like, that's your ego is like your own internal like malevolence. And you used the term shadow work, which was exactly what I was thinking when you were talking about it. And you were like, maybe there's something in me. Mm-hmm. I think, for some of us, we experience shadow work as like navigating with, our ego, navigating with our negative life experience. I think you're just so open that you're like, anything the universe needs to show me about myself through any form, like, come on in, like, let's have an experience. And that's what I'm referring to about like your courage is you're just so open. But I think what you're talking about, and this is something I'd love to discuss further, is this idea that we are so in control. And I think for me personally, as a sensitive person and a perceptive person, obviously growing up, I would go to places that are haunted, or I would be in spaces that have a collection of darker energy, as I've referred to them, and been obviously very unnerved and uncomfortable by what I've seen, again, because I wasn't taught or prepared how to handle that. But I've also cultivated, like you, a lot of compassion. And I just always kind of knew like there's too much love around me for me to be harmed. Like I never feel susceptible. And I think like I just feel fortunate for that. I think that's just who I am as a person. So I'm curious, like you go into these spaces, how do you come out unscathed? Like how do you come out without attachments? How do you come out, like what is your method of protection? Because I think mine is just like denial. Like not that I'm denying it exists, but more like you just you can't have me. Like, sorry, like access denied.
Yeah.
Talk to the hand. Like, tell me a little bit about your process.
Yeah, I think it's changed over the years. As a kid, I did have this conversation. Well, once I got into my teens, I started exploring it more and what it meant. And I had a time where I lived out of my van. I did the whole like living in the van by the river, exploring the world.
Absolutely.
Loved it. I loved it. It taught me a lot. But I met so many incredible people. And one lady that I met, she was a Reiki practitioner, helped me kind of protect myself and gave me a lot of tools. And I started reading a lot on different ways that other people have protected themselves through time. And I kind of just picked and choose what really resonated with me. And my favorite one was the visualization of having an egg around me. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of this, that like egg of light, and you can choose whatever color and you can choose what it's made out of. And the one that works the best for me when I'm going into these locations that are very dark and that they carry a lot of bad energy is it being made of iron. So I have this like iron egg, it's like it absorbs and then it kind of like transmutes to me. That's how it shows up in my mind. So anything negative that's coming in is being transmuted, and it's doing so with love in a way that it's like everything's going to be okay. And when I leave, I always make sure to say out loud what it is. I need the rules to be stated out loud to everything there, every entity, every energy. I have to call my energy back. I have to make sure that they don't follow me home. There's so many different little rituals that I do that I kind of cater to the location itself. But most of the time, the egg is my number one. I always have it on all the time. You just kind of meditate and visualize it. And if you do it enough, you imagine this egg that's, this fortress around you that nobody can get in or nobody can get out, if that's how you want it to be seen. Because I know some people, practitioners, want things to get in. They want to be able to feel and experience things. But when I'm going into these very haunted locations that are very bad, I tend to make sure that no one can get in or out, and I can only perceive.
No need.
Yeah, like I don't want to feel anything bad. I'm cool to talk to you, cool to perceive what it is that's happening, but I don't want to feel it because I feel things in my body. I feel them very intensely. Like I get sick to my stomach. I'll have the headache. I'll feel like I'm being stabbed. I'll have those impressions of the spirits and how they've passed. So that's what works best for me. And then I also imagine a little door on my head closing if it's overwhelming. And the little door works really well. I've had aura photos done before and after opening the door, and I've seen it work. So I know that works.
Wow.
It's overwhelming.
Since we're talking about this, I would love to mention my favorite like shielding technique for listeners in case anyone's curious. The egg is also one of my faves. Mine's more like a bubble, and it's like really iridescent and like very angelic kind of. Like it's just like you could probably see it around me right now.
Yeah.
But my second favorite, and the one that I use a lot, but I use it a lot with men specifically, is the panther. And it's like this big black cat that circles me and like sits next to me and is just like stalking, kind of like, you know how like big cats have those big heavy feet, and it's like boom, boom. I can feel the feet, and it's kind of like stalking around me. And if anyone comes near, it's like it just kind of goes at them. And I use her all the time. And like, I imagine just petting her, and it's obviously a girl, Avi, and just like spending all my time with her. And I honestly find the panther to be so effective. I'm also a big fan of crossing your fingers. I use this more with like unwanted energy from people. So I'll cross my fingers and like, put it in my pocket or just cross my arms, or like, you don't know my fingers are crossed right now, but like it's it's my go-to in public or like family functions where I'm like, please don't come talk to me. It's just like a little ward. So I think that these techniques are actually so effective. And I think because it's just, we're imagining it. Like you're literally like, I imagine a little door on the top of my head that closes and opens. People are like, cool, you're crazy. But it is so true because intention is what creates our reality. So that's what I was saying before about you as well, is like your curiosity, your intention is to be curious and experience all of life and death that you can in your human form. So of course it's going to come and it's going to find you. But the same is true for the ways that we protect ourselves. And I think that's the other thing I really love and admire about you, is that you not only create tools and like things people can wear, things people like talismans, like you create like patches, like your patches are talismans, like they're protection tools, like they're all so powerful. But also just the way that you approach this is extremely empowering, because I don't think, call me crazy, I don't do what you do. But when I'm around something that makes me feel uncomfortable, an entity or an energy, as soon as I combat it with softness or love or compassion, it just starts to really lose its zing. Like it's just not as effective because I'm meeting it with an opposing force. Like darkness opposes light, like fear opposes love. So I think that, the way that you teach people to experience their own gifts and to engage with their own gifts is so potently empowering, which is why I really wanted to have this conversation.
Oh, thank you. Wow, thank you. I mean, that's
my pleasure.
My dream. I would always hope to help somebody feel less alone or more empowered, or to have the courage to face those things to make their lives easier. It's done wonders for me. I've done so much work. I mean, I was kind of forced into it, but it brought me to this place where I'm not afraid of anything anymore. And I think, you really do have a good point about meeting these entities or energies that, happens in our day-to-day when we meet people too, and what it is that people carry around, what it is that we meet that with, is also very important. I think these entities don't show up as scary when you really see them for what they are. And that's very true about humans too. Like when we're having conflict or we're having these experiences with people like coworkers that you don't get along with and you just don't know why and why they're always upset. And when you come at it with compassion and you start to see the person for who they are, that all these things are just walls for something else that's going on within them, everything feels so much better. Like you're able to show up in that situation with just releasing that and having a better day. Like, so you're not going to work so worried about what a bad mood Karen is in. You're able to show up and be like, okay, I understand this about Karen, and I'm just going to release it and allow myself to, have a good day without worrying about that. I think that happens in the paranormal too, where we're meeting things with compassion and seeing things for what they are.
Well, because we're all energy, right? Like Karen is energy in our visible field. And, the entities that you're connecting with are energy forms that are invisible in our field. But they can still be experienced and felt and perceived, just like emotion, which is invisible to us, is felt, experienced, and perceived. So I've always thought it was so silly, I think, to disbelieve in things just because we can't witness them. Like there's so much that we experience and we give credit to that we don't see. And yet, even, talent, intelligence, like these things that are not necessarily visible, you can create, you can quantify them to some extent, but you can do the same in paranormal work as proven through your own gifts and the tools that you use. So one of the things I've really also wanted to discuss with you that I feel is a really important part of, who you are as a person is showing up as a queer person and a woman, a person who identifies as female is female presenting in a world that is really, I feel as an observer, kind of a boys club, like a little like male dominated. Did you have difficulty entering into that field and finding a place in that world, especially not for nothing, but like, I think sometimes beauty, which obviously you possess, is a blessing and a curse. Like being a beautiful woman will make people fawn at your feet or fucking hate your guts and like treat you horribly. And especially sometimes male counterparts, because of patriarchy, they're not taught how to hold beauty with reverence or understanding or kindness, like without a desire for possession or validation. So, and this is not a male bashing conversation, to be clear to the audience. I think patriarchy is equally harmful to men, if not more so in a lot of ways. Like patriarchy is deeply, deeply damaging to men and males. So I feel like we can't have a conversation about your work and who you are without acknowledging the potential obstacles that you've had to face to come into this line of work. And again, there are some ways that perhaps, you know, your beauty, your effervescence, your magnetism has been a privilege, but also in a lot of ways, probably very burdensome on this journey that you've walked. And I think it's important to have conversations about that, like, honestly, even though you're a very humble person.
Yeah, I mean, those are all really important things. And that's another reason why I really loved the show, because it let us be ourselves and let us do it in a way that was very loud, where people weren't guessing at all. Like you walked into the show expecting it. And that was really wonderful. Outside of that show and that wonderful bubble that I was in for a moment, the experiences I've had surrounding that has been difficult, because this is a very male dominated field, and that is changing. There are big names, well, as far as social media goes and TikTok, and I know that entertainment and TV isn't really, they're not really producing stuff right now. Like they're kind of having a lull and things are changing. But for YouTube, social media, TikTok, there are a lot of really big names. Amanda Paulson's one of them. And then I really love Becky Galantine too. These are great names that are also, you know, very feminine in this world. And we're all kind of like fighting back against it in a way that it's been difficult. It really has been difficult. It's always been kind of a boys' club. I am trying to think of a major network paranormal show that was led by a woman, and I'm having a hard time thinking of one, and I'm sure there is one, but it's a bummer.
I'm not positive.
It's honestly a huge bummer that I'm having trouble thinking of one. And that right there, like that's a big deal. That's a really big deal. It's been difficult because, you know, working in that field, it's always being counterpart to a man, and there's always a man showing first, and they're in the middle of the poster. They're the main ones that are speaking. They're, you know, I'm always there as like the secondary too. And like, that's okay. I understand that this is how the patriarchy has kind of created media, and this is what people are consuming. Like, I'm not sure if they themselves even realize that this is what they're attracted to because of what they've grown up in, but we're trying really hard to change that. Me and my friends and the people that I work with on my YouTube, we're all trying to change the idea of what it is to be in the paranormal. It doesn't have to be so male-centered all the time. And I think that's a huge disservice to the paranormal world as well, because, you know, I'm not talking shit on that.
No.
But, you know, they're bringing only a certain viewpoint into these experiences, these paranormal experiences, and these locations that have a lot of trauma and they have a lot of history, and they're things that they themselves can't naturally resonate with without having something in common with the entities or the spirits that are there. I think it's important to have more voices, more feminine presenting voices, more queer voices, more women in this field, because we're very empathetic naturally as is. And the experiences that we have growing up resonate deeply with a lot of the hauntings that are typically still happening, because a lot of them are they're very rooted in trauma, and men have typically been top of the food chain, and the trauma that they experience is very different than the trauma that we have endured over the years. And most of these locations you walk into, it's always a woman. There's always a story of a woman who was abused, or something really horrible happened and she took her life there. And we need somebody who resonates with her to go in and have that conversation with her and tell her that she's okay, and be able to sit with her in those emotions and let her know that she's not alone. And I think that doesn't happen in a male-dominated field, and it's very important that we're giving space to that. So I love the paranormal. I love that we're helping entities. I love that we're uplifting stories. It's just, I have so many thoughts. Oh my gosh, I have so many thoughts about it. I'm really happy that we're uplifting these stories, but then adding the queer element, I think also has uplifted a lot more stories that are very much needing to be heard right now. The political climate is pretty rocky when it comes to LGBTQIA plus stories and people, and there are so many things that need to be brought to people's attention because it feels like it's being buried right now. Living for the Dead has been a wonderful blessing, and unfortunately Hulu removed it very quickly, so you can't find it anymore, which is a bummer, and we don't know why it was taken off the platforms, but it happened right before the election.
I'm sure we can guess.
It happened right before the election.
Yep,
but this is the world we live in, and it's something that I hope continues to be talked about. Currently, yes, it's going to change. We're working the best we can to change it.
You know, you said something that is so important that I would love to touch on, because even as I asked the question, this wasn't a part of the answer that I had anticipated, but feels so important. So a couple of things I just want to reflect on for a second. The fact that women can resonate, or like feminine energy can resonate with certain entities differently than male energy can, blew my mind, but makes so much sense. Like as you were saying it, it was almost like it was unfurling from my own brain. I was like, this is incredible. So that's the first thing. The second thing is queerness. Queerness has existed through all time. Forever. Just because we haven't acknowledged its presence. So of course, queer energy can resonate more deeply, and queer entities probably feel safest in queer presence to show themselves, express themselves, communicate, like, yes. Whoa, duh. And masculinity is very, as it's meant to be, right? Like, hold on a second. Masculinity, masculine energy has its purpose. Like it is necessary in polarity. We need masculine energy. It is necessary, but it is very seeking. It's hunting. It's like ghost hunters. It's hunting, right? Like, whereas feminine energy is curious, investigating. Like we, even in like the language that's used, we can see that there's some of this energy that, like, if I was a ghost that like died because like, and I was a fearful person, and I'm probably a fearful entity, and a big scary man's like, come out and show yourself, you little bitch ghost. I'd be like, like I'd be scared. I wouldn't want to talk to that person.
No.
So the fact that like so I was so thinking about this from like your experience and your, you know, you navigating the human part of that journey. But for you to provide an answer that was like, well, here's how it really serves the work. I'm like, like, what? Okay, yeah, you're a fucking genius. I'm obsessed with you. That's why I wanted to have this conversation with you, because I think this is so potently important to discuss, is that, you know, as sensitive beings, like the majority of people listening to this podcast, I guarantee you have had some paranormal experience or some supernatural experience of their own. And we're not taught how to hold it. We're taught to deny it. We're taught to feel a lot of shame and a lot of guilt and a lot of fear around having that experience. And for you to be a voice, and others like you, trust me, I'm not like, okay, Alex is the only one doing this, guys. Like you've even named some other names. Like obviously there's other people doing this work, but you happen to be the person that I resonate with. Like to see you creating a sense of empowerment out of this work, not just for humans and people who have these experiences who weren't taught to hold them, but for the souls, like the living souls and the souls in the other side of this experience. Like that level of consciousness and intentionality is what makes you so good at what you do. And I also think it's part of the magnetism of your work, is like, it's authentic. Like your energy is extremely authentic. And I think anything living or dead is going to want something from that. So for you, all of those points of intersection make you so like attractive to both the living and the dead in ways that like I did not even think about, which is iconic.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to be glowing for like a year after this conversation. Thank you so much.
This is like, seriously, my gift is like that's just what I do is I feel love and I just can't help but speak it. I'm like, here's all the things that are so lovable about you. Like, you should know them just in case you don't. Like, that's just
I love that.
who I am.
I do that too. And I think
you.
it's so important that more people do that, because we tend to be very quiet about how we feel and we don't say what really is on our mind. And I think more people should do that. So thank you.
And you know,
very much.
it's funny, like, it's worth mentioning. I just did another interview right before this in real time, which you guys will have heard last month, with John Prince, who is the perception coach. I love him. He's amazing. A wonderful, conscious male energy to have on the show. As much as I'm like pouring the same level of like love and care into him, like there are people, John or other practitioners, who like I can't quite be so effusive with for like, I'm sure a plethora of reasons, but like you're someone that I have, you know, a parasocial relationship with, but like a relationship too. And so it just feels easier and safer to be like, pop off, babe. Like, love this for you. Like, it's just easier to like be my full self. And I think it's going to be fun for listeners to hear that and experience that as well. And I think they'll really love this conversation. So I have so many other questions for you. And I know we're like nearing the end of our scheduled time and we can't make episodes that are 2 hours. I don't know why, but I wish we could. But, you know, you have your own YouTube channel. Can you tell us a little bit about the way that you have enjoyed kind of creating your own content and the way that you structure that content to really serve the agenda that you have of navigating this work with a focus on grief and resilience, while also like still keeping it fun? Like, I watch your channel and I laugh, like, which I never think I'm going to do when I watch, you know, like something paranormal. I expect it's going to be like a scary movie almost, but like with your channel, I'm laughing because like you're funny, you're goofy. So like grief, resilience, and humor are things that you find a way to weave into your work so effortlessly because it's a natural part of who you are. What has it been like to, you know, create your own content? And tell us a little bit about, for people that haven't watched your channel yet, what they can expect to experience when they witness your work.
Well, the YouTube's been so much fun because I'm able to just let it be as authentic as I want. There is some editing, but I try to keep as much as I can in and let people be as human as possible. I feel like a lot of things can be so very edited and polished that I like digging into the nitty-gritty and having those really maybe awkward conversations, deep conversations, or hitting on those topics of maybe trauma or things from the past that people tend to shy away from, because I think these conversations are really important, and that's what I like to lean into on my YouTube. I take lots of different friends, so to be expected, it will always be somebody new that I'm bringing into the situation. I love bringing skeptics into the situation because it's always pretty funny. It's just nice bringing different perspectives in and letting people experience it for the first time is really amazing. Letting people who have always wanted to experience it in a space that's safe. I always try to make it so it's not very scary, but it approaches it in a way of curiosity, where I hope that whoever's watching is also curious and less afraid. I want people to feel more empowered by it, and I want them to feel as though they are having a good time and it's feeling less stigmatized, because, you know, things have always been satanic panic and it's demonic and it's against God. And there are so many things that we've been told through time. And I want to kind of disprove that these things are evil and it's just a part of the world that we live in. There are imprints of energy everywhere. The walls, wood, they've proven water in itself to hold energy and memory, and they have been able to see that energy scientifically like hundreds of years later. So there are ways that we're still existing even though we ourselves are not physically here anymore, and that I like to explore and let the viewer kind of come to their own conclusions and maybe resonate with it in a way that's different than the typical paranormal show where they're like, oh my God, it's so scary, and they're running and screaming. I want it to be, more calm and entertaining. So that's my goal with my YouTube. And I really hope that whoever does watch it enjoys it. I'm trying my best. It's just me producing and editing everything. So I do what I can.
Honestly, women in STEM, I love this. You're doing not just the tech part of it, but I really appreciate the way that you are. I mean, I think your curiosity is such a gift because it creates so much possibility in the work. Like, I think for some spiritual practitioners, and I personally can't agree with this, or like, I don't resonate with this, but I know it's a perspective that exists. Some spiritual practitioners are very resistant to science, like, which I've always been kind of interested by. I think perhaps because as a practitioner, or, a just spiritually driven person, we can sometimes be very challenged by people who want like quantifiable, hard evidence and proof of things that we experience. And that can feel very combative. It's like I remember when I used to talk about crystals, people would be like, show me some science on it. And I'd be like, I don't really like, I don't have those studies like on hand, but if you'd like, I can provide like, some Vogel study. Like I can pull that up and pull that out. But there are some people who, I think because we're so challenged and we're so questioned and misunderstood, that sometimes we see science as like a tool people use against us. But I really admire the way that you're like, look, it's physics, babe. Like there's pieces to this that like we can talk about more tangibly. And it's just a way for us to continue to like understand more of the universe. And this actually leads me to, I have one last question, if you don't mind. And this just kind of comes from like my own self, but I think there's going to be so much benefit for people listening. As a professional psychic, 95% of the time when I tell someone what I do, they're like, that's amazing. Can you talk to my dead grandma right now on the spot while you're getting a haircut or something? And I'm like, I'm not really in like the headspace for that right this moment. My door is closed because my hair is getting cut. But I find that, for that 95% of people, 5% of people are like, oh, so you're certifiably insane. Like, oh, you're a crazy person. And I think, both intuitive work as well as paranormal work is so it's so argued against and belittled and negated and mocked. Like I've never, even in the shows that are about psychics and intuitives doing work, we're always like the butt of a joke somehow, like there's like, and I don't want to call anyone out specifically, there's the things out there, but I'm so curious how you have navigated a life where you are devoted to things, not just as a paranormal investigator, but also as an artist. Like art is also just shit upon. People are like, oh, you're an artist? Like you can draw a little picture? Like I'm always astounded at the way that we're just not taken seriously. So as a person who has devoted their life to things that are either disbelieved or not seen as like serious or worthwhile or feasible or responsible, like how do you navigate that energy? And what advice would you give to people who want to pursue something that is more abstract or unique, that would support them in feeling brave enough to challenge the naysayers?
That's, an amazing question. And
Thanks,
when I think about how I done it, that's beautiful. Thank you. I think about the things that I've experienced as a paranormal investigator and an artist, because like, I'm going to draw a little picture. Cackling. That's so funny. But that is really how it's met. It's like people being like, oh, well, can you draw me something? And it's never taken seriously. And that's maybe the part of what drives me is I like the idea that people think I can't do it. You know how when someone comes up and they're like, you can't do it, makes you want to do it so much more. So anytime I'm given that resistance, I kind of leaned into it even more. And I've been a professional artist now for 13 years. It's been my full-time job. And then I became a paranormal investigator professionally. I've been doing it my whole life, but professionally, I started getting even more pushback in the same way. And for anybody who is experiencing this in their own life, what I think has given me the most power in that situation is just knowing that the louder I was and the more I leaned into it, to not fear the people that you will end up losing in that process will make way for the people who are going to accept you as you are. And you'll end up in a situation where you're surrounded by people who love you for who you are and what you do and believe in you. And so I hope people are able to release the fear of loss or judgment or shame that they get from their peers and realize that this is just growing pains, and you're just outgrowing these people who you don't need in your life if they don't believe in you or of what you're doing and they don't want to support you. You don't need those kinds of people in your life anyway. So the pushback is just there to remind you that you're doing something important. And eventually you'll end up meeting the people who are supposed to be in your life, the louder you are about it. So I hope that everyone can feel confident in what it is that they're doing and that they will end up in a place where they're accepted and loved and seen for who they are.
You know, as you were talking, first of all, that answer ate the fuck up. That was incredible. But second, when you were talking about this and you were saying like, you know, there's inherent loss in that, it made me think of the work that you do, like loss, death. And I think if anything, paranormal work is evidence and proof that energy may exit your life, but it also changes its shape. And so when someone is standing in your life that is not resonant with who you are trying to allow yourself to become, because it's very, very hard to pursue authenticity. It's very, very hard to pursue inner truth because the whole world around you is saying, don't be that, be this. Don't be that, be this. Don't be what you want to be what I need you to be. And when you allow that person to dissolve or that entity to dissolve out of your life, it creates the space for something like you're saying, someone else to come in and enter. And it can be a death and it can be a loss. And just as, you know, you're bringing more honesty and heart to paranormal work and a willingness to sit with grief, like I want to just say to people too, to piggyback on what you're saying, you're allowed to be sad when you have to let go. You're allowed to feel your heart break over that. You're allowed to be destroyed, you know, to an extent. But loss and destruction are forces of creation because what is lost transforms into something else. And so as you were giving that answer, I just felt like all these parallels of all the things we've been talking about just kind of coming together. And I really think that is such sound advice. And I think it's really compelling coming from someone like yourself who you're not just telling people to do something you haven't done. You're telling people to do something that you have done. And, you know, no one is perfect and no life is perfect. But I see as an observer of your life, the way that your choices have built, you know, you're in a beautiful relationship. You have beautiful community and friends and opportunities. Like you've manifested opportunities that people dream their whole lives of having. And you can't do that without being like really yourself and being willing to release the things that are misaligned with that self that you're choosing to be.
And not being afraid of being misunderstood. Let people misunderstand you. Like, it's okay, you know? And grief
banger after banger, babe. You're just blowing my mind. Alex, thanks for being here. I would really like, I'm going to gush about you in a minute, but can you please tell listeners where they can find you, where they can experience you? And also just a quick side note, Moon Goddess Market is not a side business. I can't even believe you even referred to it that way. How dare you? Like, especially as a Phoenix fixture, Moon Goddess Market is iconic. Like, wildly well known. Like, truly, you're an icon. Like, when I found out that you were doing paranormal investigation, I was like, what? Like, she's an artist. Like, I was almost like a little bit surprised because like you're an artist and you probably won't promote it, but guys, Moon Goddess Market, shop it online, like go find her account. Her stuff is so good. So good. But anyway, how can people find you, experience you? Where can we watch you? Where can we buy from you? Where can we talk to you? Tell us all the good ways to connect.
I have every social media platform and it's Alex LeMay, and it includes the ITS at the beginning. So it's Alex LeMay on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. I have all of the things. You could just Google my name as well and I'll show up with all my links. I have lots of investigations planned. I have a whole new set of things that I'm coming out with for Moon Goddess Market as well. That's coming for October, so I'm sure they'll all be out. I'll have a whole new line of items. And I make paranormal equipment too, so I'll have tons of that restocked in the coming months. And it's all under Alex LeMay. So thank you so much for having me on. I'm just glowing right now, and I'm just going to have the best day after this conversation. And thank you for asking these really deep, beautiful these really deep, beautiful questions, because it's one of those things that, like, these are conversations people need to have, and you're doing such amazing work. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I think as someone whose work is trivialized, it's really like there's an inherent part of me that's like, I want to uplift the voices of others whose work or industry is typically trivialized, like artists or queer people or paranormal investigators. Like, it's so easy to make us seem, irresponsible or like we're a joke. And this space is truly for soft souls, crybabies, people who have always felt big things deeply. And it's important to me to bring on other people that, have always been little freakazoids and big feelers. And I know that you are those things. So Alex, thank you so much. Side note, let's go grab some coffee or something. My treat.
I would love that.
Also, perfect. Well, there you have it, blessed babes. Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode. And I would love if we could take a moment to send this week's subject, Alex LeMay, some love, sweetness, and positivity as she continues to take us into the depths of the unseen. If you are interested in being on the podcast, send an email to podcast@zoegreco.com. Connect with me on all socials at the Zoe Greco. And of course, I want to conclude by reminding you that you are important. You matter, and you are perfect exactly as you are. I love you. Your spirit guides love you. Alex loves you, and the universe loves you. So until next time, keep answering the call of your higher self. Bye, friends.